Welcome to the Think Act Be podcast. I'm Seth Gillihan. I just want to take a quick moment as we're starting out to thank my supporting members. You'll notice there are no ads in the Think Act Be podcast, and your support makes that possible. So thank you. My guest this week, I'm excited to say guests, I have two, are Dr. Michel Kinderman. She's a licensed clinical psychologist, co-founder of Wellness Outside the Box, and for nearly 2 decades, she's been successfully treating children and adults struggling with trauma, depression, anxiety, relationship conflict, parenting issues, and the stresses of everyday life. To maintain balance and serenity in her own life, she enjoys hiking, rock climbing, skateboarding, dancing, and spending time with her husband, 2 sons, and the family dog, Zippy. And Dr. Kelly Yanek is a nationally certified school psychologist and the other founder of Wellness Outside the Box. She's also a certified yoga instructor. She takes great pride in the progress and success of her clients and looks forward to helping you. In her free time, you can find Kelly traveling, enjoying the beach, practicing yoga, running, cycling, or swimming, like a triathlete, and most of all, spending time with her family and friends. So Michelle, Kelly, welcome. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having us. We're excited
Well,
to be
I was introduced to your work over the summer, which is a few months ago, and was really excited to hear about what it is that you're doing. So what I didn't say from your bios is the really unique approach that you have to therapy. So maybe we can start and you can just describe what is Wellness Outside the Box, and maybe we'll start there. What's your approach?
Well, Wellness Outside the Box is the name of our therapeutic practice. So it's located on a 20-acre farm in Princeton with animals and a pond and beautiful grounds. And in our practice, Wellness Outside the Box, we utilize what we've created and called the dual therapist model. So it's basically both of us seeing all of our clients together. So if there's an individual client, you're going to have both of us sitting here with you.
I should probably let our listeners take a moment just to let that sink in, because I know for me, when I looked at your website, but I must have read it quickly or something, because for some reason it hadn't sunk in. Like, no, you actually see all of your clients together.
Yes.
I was imagining, I was familiar with group therapy and maybe sometimes couples therapy where there were 2 therapists, but seeing an individual client, both of you together, was something new. So Michelle, as you described, that's a very unique approach. And Kelly, I'm interested in your take on this and what led you to do this?
To do all of it or any particular part? Or
Oh, sorry. What led you to do dual therapy?
Sure. So, when we got together to create Wellness Outside the Box, we both were at a point in our careers where we were looking for something more, something different to kind of break those kind of barriers to what was kind of holding us back. So we started wanting to work with clients outdoors. We started seeing clients at wanting to bring people and groups to rock gyms, things like that. And we launched our business right prior to and in the middle of the pandemic. So running
Wow.
groups and retreats during a time when everyone needs to be at least 6 feet apart was not really conducive. So we had to pivot, and we got a call from an individual who was looking for individual therapy and asked if we would be willing to meet with her outside. And so we sort of reviewed the pros and cons, and there were more pros and cons. We processed it, we talked about it, and we said, let's try it. So we brought our folding chairs, and we met her in a beautiful sort of private spot in the park. We dragged our little wagon with tissues and water bottles and whatever, and we set up outdoors, and we had our first individual client that we met with together. So it was the 3 of us. And after that session, we both looked at each other and went, wow, there's something to this.
So just make sure I understand. So the dual therapy model and practicing outside emerged at the same time?
Well, the original goal was we wanted Wellness Outside the Box to be a place where people could experience retreats and groups. And that was our original idea, that we would co-lead retreats and groups outdoors in nature and all. Then the pandemic, nobody wanted to be in a group. So that's when we got the call from an individual client and said, does Wellness Outside the Box do individual therapy? And we knew we wanted to work together. We didn't want to be back in an office, one-on-one traditional therapy, because we were having fun. It was,
Right.
we were friends first and we enjoy each other's company. And so we said, let's try it.
Wow. Wow. So you were already together, you were a duo, but you weren't planning to see people individually.
Correct.
So the shift really was, well, maybe the two of us together can see not just a bunch of people through retreats, that kind of thing, but actually see individual clients. What led you to that? Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. We come with such kind of different skill sets as well. So Michelle comes with a more clinical background, that more, has a background in the more traditional therapies. And then I don't know why I'm talking for you, but that's kind of what we do. You get to see how that works. And I come with more of a background in experiential and outdoor adventure background. So
Right.
for the two of us to pool that together was really a natural progression. And then being able to apply that for an individual client just really worked well. And so we saw the benefits of that.
Do you remember what the discussion was for that first session? Like beforehand, what led you to both meet with this person?
Well, we knew we didn't want to just do individual therapy. We wanted to work together.
Okay.
So could that be a possibility? Both of us meeting with the client. I mean, it would certainly be interesting and enjoyable and fun.
And also in that instance, the idea of meeting outdoors with a client felt more safe for everybody.
Yeah.
So for a client to be willing to just meet with one person in a park, was a little, it was a little odd to present for the idea of two of us. This is what we do. We'll meet with you. It created, not only emotional safety, but just logistical, physical safety. It took, some of that pressure off of everybody. And that's when we realized how empowering the team approach was and how quickly we were able to kind of establish rapport and make the relationship go more smoothly when there were three of us part of that team.
Right. Yeah. What a hugely different dynamic. I mean, I remember I took a sociology class in college, and the professor saying, the most, like the biggest shift in human relations is going from 2 to 3. As soon as you have, a third, you have the possibility of triangles, of alliances, of one person observing an interaction between others. You have a witness to any of the interactions, or a third party witness, literally third. So I've only done, as I said, I've co-led some groups with another therapist. I've never done conjoint therapy, dual therapy with an individual, and so I know how how challenging that can be, to be solo all the time, and I was told about this beforehand, and I probably poo-pooed it a little bit, the loneliness that a person can find doing solo practice, and eventually for myself, you won't be surprised to hear I wound up in burnout from just seeing hour after hour of clients in my clinical office by myself, tucked away in this small office. So I'm interested in your experience. Has each of you done individual therapy in the past as a therapist?
We've done it differently. So I worked at a bunch of different places, but did a lot of individual therapy. And
I worked in the public school system, so providing it individually, but within a system.
Right. So I'm interested first, Michelle, in your experience.
Yeah.
How would you contrast the solo approach versus the dual approach, and just for yourself?
For me, the solo approach was a quick path to burnout. I had very little left to give to my family when I came home. And, there were times when I was in, peer support groups or supervisory relationships, and that was helpful, but maybe it was once a week. So when you have a day with back-to-back clients and you're working with them on trauma or anxiety or depression, these are heavy issues. And as a therapist, you hold the emotions for them during the session. And even if you're really good at letting it go, when you leave the session, for me at least, the thoughts still spun in my head. So I would wake up in the middle of the night and, feel something for one of my clients' experiences, or I'd have thoughts, maybe I should bring this up in the next session or tweak this, or I should have said that, or, I'd be processing it and I'd be just so burnt out by the time I came home to my family. This has been really, the model doesn't just treat burnout, it prevents burnout. It has prevented burnout from us because we both experienced burnout prior to doing this, which is part of the reason why, Kelly texted me one day and said, I need a change. I've got a crazy idea. Are you up for something different? And I just said, yeah, please. And we met up and we just said, let's do it. And off we went.
Yeah.
Because we were both burnt out.
And for me, I was working with, the special education population who either had, severe, disabilities or, either physical learning or emotional issues, and working within the context of trying to put out a lot of fires, being questioned by the whole system and trying to work within that. It was hard to have any feedback that you could believe was genuine about your work performance and whether you were making a difference. Kids would just move on to a new grade level and you had no checks and balances, no feedback, good, bad, or other about, the impact that you might be having. So like you had mentioned, having that witness in the session is great when something really cool happens. We're like we can actually talk about that. It's different than being able to come home and be like, oh, I had a really great day and I had this thing, with confidentiality and ethics and all that. So to have a witness to all the really great things that happen, but to also have in the moment someone there to help when something goes awry or something hits wrong. There's a challenge in the process, or you're triggered by something and you have someone right there to process that with. It's been really, to get that out before you even get in the car to go home has alleviated that bad. I mean, don't get us wrong. Like, we're still human beings and we still carry our clients' stuff from time to time, but the baggage is a lot less heavy.
Wow. Yeah. What a huge difference. So I want to get a practical question out of the way, because I'm guessing a lot of listeners have already thought of it. So, and there are several, but a big one is, on both, well, I was going to say in both chairs, I guess in all three chairs in this case, there's the financial question. So, at two extremes, I can imagine, at one extreme, the client just pays double, which is obviously probably, impossible for most people looking for therapy. At the other extreme, they pay what they would pay a single therapist, and each of you takes home half, assuming you split things fairly.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
So how do you think about that, and how do you work that out?
Oh, we charge a reasonable going rate, the same rates that an individual therapist would charge. We're in Princeton, so people in this area can generally afford a regular. The average rate in Princeton is probably what we charge. We're probably maybe a little towards the higher end, but we're not extreme.
Right.
And then we do have to split it. But because we're not burnt out, because we wake up happy to go to work each day, because we have each other to process the sessions, the feelings, the thoughts in between sessions, because we can go for a nice coffee in between sessions sometimes, or go for a walk, or have fun, throw a quick 10-minute dance party if we need to release some energy in between clients. We have more energy, we're more productive, we're more motivated, so we can see more people. We don't get that burnout.
Yeah. 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 So it sounds like it works out, and in the end, it's actually, I mean, few things are more expensive than burning out and quitting.
Yes,
Correct.
exactly.
And we also share the workload in
Yeah.
terms of, notes, doing notes, the paperwork,
The grunt
the
work.
grunt work. We divide that up. So it's half the work in
Yeah.
that sense. And even in the sessions, having each other in the sessions, again, it's a really interesting dynamic to be able to either be the observer or pick up and kind of, tag team with what the work. So a lot of that burden of constantly being the witness and the provider and the holder and the processor, like we share that experience. So it really, as Michelle said, like we're able to see more clients in a day as a result of that than we would probably ever be able to do alone. Like you said, it's very isolating, and you get really drained.
Right. Yeah. Something that came up the first time we spoke was about vacations. Tell me about the nice sort of perk that you get there.
Yeah. So that's another actually financial benefit for the clinicians is that we almost never have to cancel a client session. So, and we explain all this to the clients in the beginning that we work with a dual therapist model. On rare occasions, you will have one of us or the other of
Mm-hmm.
us, but 99% of the time, you want both of us. So if Kelly or I have a sick child at home or we want to plan a vacation, the other one will cover. So I can take a week off and still have money coming in. So it's, normally if you have a private practice, a week off is a week that you don't get paid. So yeah.
Wow, that's really amazing.
Yeah.
You have that built-in, uh, the built-in backup, who's
Mhm.
not a substitute, right?
Right.
You've been with the person the whole time.
Which in terms of burnout too, like when you need a mental health day for yourself or you
Mhm.
need to take care of something, there isn't that added guilt that, okay, well, I'm letting clients down or I'm
Yeah.
missing people. And you can go kind of guilt free and do whatever it is that you need to do. I will say, interestingly enough, having worked in the schools, and I used to have weeks off at Christmas and weeks off in springtime and 10 weeks in the summer. For me, it was a concern, like, how am I going to do with, not having that much time off, which I know
Right.
sounds crazy, but I have not missed that schedule at all. Like with what we do, I'm excited to be here. I don't feel that so much time away,
Hmm.
but I don't feel as drained. I'm excited to come to work, and we're fun. And the work is fun and it's
Yeah.
fulfilling, and it's a very rewarding career path at this point, which was not how it was looking prior to us coming together and doing this work.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so really it sounds like you're excited to go to work, because
Mhm.
it reminds me, as I walked our older daughter to school this morning, and the most exciting thing for our kids usually is that they get to see their friends
Yes.
when they go to school, and it sounds like that's kind of
Yes.
the deal for you. Like, okay, I get to see Kelly. I get to see Michelle
Yes.
today.
Yeah. Mondays are a great day because we get here a little
Wow.
bit early. We catch up on our weekends. What did you
Yeah.
do? We can process any issues we might be having at home.
Right.
Yeah.
Good way to start the week.
Yeah. What about guilt toward the other person if you have to miss? Does that come up?
So that's part of choosing your dual therapist model partner.
Yeah.
You have to, Kelly and I talk about everything, everything. We process everything. There's no holding grudges in this relationship. There's no holding on to resentments. Like everything has to be put out there, talked about. It took us a while to get to that point. So we know now it might come up, I think probably more for me. So if I have to take a day off, I'll ask her several times, are you sure? Like I can jump on for that virtual session. We have it. No, so we talk about it, we process it. I put it out there. We reassure each other and we move on. You have to have full trust in your partner that, when you're not there for the day, they're doing amazing work with the client.
Right. Yeah, that trust, I mean, must just be so fundamental, and in your case, so deep that you have in each other, just that implicit trust.
Well, and it's work, we actively work on it, like therapy in a sense, in that it's an ongoing journey. It's an active process,
Mm,
actively communicating, being honest, being open.
And there were bumps in the road in the
Mhm.
beginning because neither one of us, this wasn't something familiar. We had to navigate some of that, and kind of take the risk in saying, you know what, that didn't hit right, or
Yeah.
that felt weird in session. Earlier on, it was, well, I felt like I didn't say anything during the session. Did you think I couldn't say anything during the, like, it was, say my insecurities coming out. And
mm,
then we would process that. And next time, then be able to, I would, be able to have the courage to speak up and be more assertive without worrying that I was going to hurt her feelings. There was a lot of that went on that couldn't have happened if we hadn't been able to process that immediately following a session, or have the courage to kind of bring that up and be authentic and be transparent, which is what we're teaching our clients to do. So it's really kind of walking the walk and talking the talk.
Yeah, the personal and professional growth
yeah.
are
Yeah.
just exponential.
Wow. So I was gonna ask this question, but I think I know the answer based on what you just said about, what happens when you have disagreements about, the direction for a session, or like I was moving things in this direction, but then you came in and, sort of hijacked, derailed, I'm guessing you wouldn't use such inflammatory language, but, then you had other ideas about how the session should go. And let's talk about that. How do you, I'm guessing that comes up. And so I'm curious
Yes.
if that's the case, and then how you deal with that.
We actually do that in front of the client.
Wow. Okay.
So I might look at Kelly and be like, all right, you just took it in a totally different direction. I was
Yeah.
going this way. Can I finish where I was going? And she might say, sorry, or she might say, wait, can we just do this first and then we'll get back to that? Be like, all right, go ahead. And it's
Right.
just honest, genuine, open. The client appreciates it.
Hmm.
They see it in real time. They're part of the team. We might say to them, you know, what are your thoughts? We're just bantering over here. Where do you want to go with it? And
Right.
so it's really in the moment, open, honest, genuine.
Mm.
Yeah. And then sometimes now at this, and it really is a delicate balance of being at the point where the client has rapport and we've established a relationship.
Yeah.
But sometimes we'll be like, all right, hold on a second. We're gonna have a sidebar you get to watch. And I'll be like, well, I don't understand. Like, how do you want us to get there? I'm very much what do we need to do about this? How do we fix it? Where are we going with it? And what's the action step? And Michelle tends to be more insight oriented, and let's sit and kind of process the feelings. And so,
And we might say that in front of the
Right.
client. Well, I think she needs to feel this for a little bit,
so, but depending on how the client is, they
Yeah.
may align more with that idea, or they may really appreciate that impatience that I feel on their behalf in wanting to do something, or save them or pull them from it. And so validates all of the things that they're experiencing, which is really nice. And then depending on how it goes, we'll discuss that afterwards. She'll be like, what were you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. I really just wanted to think, and we'll work through what's happening for us.
Mm.
And because we've been doing this for a little while now, it's much smoother. So Kelly might jump in and start to do something. And because I know her skill set and we know each other, I can sort of more quickly see where she's going with that. So I can either at that point choose to say, wait, I want to just finish this direction first. Or I might say to myself, oh, I see where she's going. That's a really good idea. And keep my mouth shut. So it
Mm.
just depends.
And do you find that each of you tends to that there are some clients that you connect, one of you connects more easily with than the other, or
Mhm.
vice versa? So like, what's that like?
That happens a lot when we do couples work also,
Mm.
but also with individual. And the alignment shifts during the session sometimes. So depending on what the client is talking about, there might be times where Kelly is aligned with the client and I'm more able to challenge them, because when one of us is aligned with the client, it makes it safer for the client to hear challenges from the other therapist,
Yeah, right.
because they always feel supported.
Right.
So then I can, gently challenge, because they know Kelly's on the same page with them. And it's got to feel genuine. And I think it just works with who we each are and what we both bring to the table in our own personal baggage and our own experiences, that one of us tends to align. And then the other can step in and challenge.
And are most of your sessions still happening outdoors?
Whenever we can. Yeah. So, and we also leave it up to the client a lot. So some people just, the cottage here is very cozy and we have the windows open usually and it's sunny. And so some people feel cozy in here and they just want to be indoors. And other people want to be outside, walking around the farm while we talk, or throwing rocks in the pond during the session, or feeding the cows, or, depends.
Most of our kids want to be outside. So
Yeah.
when we see our younger clients, they like to be outside and be more active and not feel like it's in a more kind of clinical setting. Not that it feels clinical in here, but for them, that idea, especially with the younger clients, the adults, child across the room is, sets up that dynamic. So when we go outside and throw a ball around or, run around like silly people, they feel much more, open to sharing and talking.
Yeah, and I know parents tend to know this, but just talking with a child is often much easier if you have some activity
Yes.
that
Yeah.
you're doing or some kind of movement. And even with adults, for that matter, my wife and I had to have a fairly difficult conversation recently, and like, well, should we sit inside? And decided let's definitely walk. This is a walking conversation.
Yeah.
So what's the what are some of the advantages to? I mean, I was going to ask about being outside, but I should probably preface this with saying that when I was doing full-time therapy in my office, not uncommonly I was inside for 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and I could look out my windows and see the outdoors, and it might be a beautiful day like it is today, and I would just have this feeling of like, this doesn't seem ideal that I'm just sitting inside all the time. So there are benefits for the therapist. And what about just in your clinical work? People often talk about experiencing a kind of healing in the natural world, and I'm wondering how that enters into your work.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you think about yourself, is there anybody really who wants to sit in an office for 8, 9, 10 hours a day
Right.
with fluorescent lights and 4 walls? And, so think about where you would want to be and the benefits that you experience from nature and being outdoors. Like everybody on a break wants to go outside and breathe in fresh air. So if it feels good for you, it likely feels good for clients.
It also allows for, specifically with, say, anxiety and working on grounding skills and using your 5 senses, and be able to do that outdoors serves a couple purposes. One, it allows for naturally occurring stimuli to be able to do that with. You can hear the sounds close up and in the distance. There's a lot more to see and observe that may be moving, or things to help you notice and be in the present moment. And it also allows it. I had another thought.
You can right out of your
It
head.
did fly right out of my head.
Yeah, there's just so many healing benefits to being outside. Like we know there's neurological benefits and vitamin benefits, just from the sun and being outdoors. But we teach them skills that they can go in their own backyard.
That was thank you. That was where I was going with it.
See how
Thank
this
you.
works?
Okay, I knew this was
so they can take this and go outside anywhere and just refresh their minds and spirits.
Yeah. And this is nice. We just got a live demo of how some of the
that is what it looks like. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And some of the pros. I wanted to go back. Actually, had something else occurred to me about doing dual therapy and then sometimes doing single therapy sessions. This is maybe slightly awkward, but does either of you? I'll ask you first, Kelly. Is either of you kind of do you kind of enjoy having a session where it's just you without the other person? Are there certain advantages to that at times? Tricky, huh?
That is tricky. And you know what? It depends on the client. There are some where I gravitate and get my comfort zone is more in activity and metaphors and experiential things. And so if I have an opportunity to focus the whole session on that, there is a benefit to that, and I personally enjoy it. At this point, there'll be times where, I'll work with a client and then I'll say, well, this would be where Michelle would say we should go back and kind of talk about how this impacted on your childhood or how this looked, back then. And, at that point, the client and I can kind of giggle like, let's imagine what Michelle would say here in this sense.
Right.
Because I know the two of us would just want to go out and have some ice cream and pretend this never happened. And, and vice versa. I think you can speak to when I'm not around, but for me that there's that, but it doesn't happen too often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And how about you,
But
Michelle?
But it's still see the benefit of, and she's still here when she's not here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. It's just kind of fun sometimes to say, all right, it's personal to myself and I can dive in.
Yeah.
And, once in a while, I think it's good for the client to get that. It's like I sort of dig in a little bit deeper,
Mhm.
for the most part, because we balance each other. And I like to go right for the,
Yeah.
right,
Jugular.
right for the jugular. Yes. Kelly, I know Kelly is there to sort of bring back up a little bit when need be, so the client doesn't feel overwhelmed. But after we've known a client for a while and I have a session to myself, I can sort of dig in there. And then, I would do the same thing and say, all right, here's where Kelly would tell me to stop and,
Right.
lighten it a little bit.
Yeah. So again, the other person is in the room even when they're not.
Yeah.
To some extent. Yeah. Do you know of anyone else who's doing something like what you're doing?
Mm-hmm. We've researched it. We've looked for it. We've Googled it. We've yet to find anyone else doing what we're doing.
Wow. I am very interested in this approach. I think I told you when we spoke that I had closed my practice a few months ago, and I have other things that I'm working on, teaching, writing, but a lot of it was just it was difficult to manage with some of the health issues I was having, and how much of it was related to that. I'm not exactly sure, but also it was just difficult to kind of maintain, that sort of emotional intensity and just the demands that it required. So I haven't had, really a lot of interest in doing therapy, going back to therapy anytime soon. But when I heard your description, I was sort of amazed to feel this sense of like, yes, like I would love to do that. Like not just like, yeah, I could do that. That would make it easier. But like, that sounds amazing. So I'm interested for myself, of course, but how does one go about doing this? Because it sounds like it's not like you two were just off, in your separate worlds, and then
Right.
both of you were looking, and then, you matched up somehow, like you were already a duo. I don't know that I have anybody like that at this point who would embark on that with me. How do people get started?
We actually have a whole training program where you can get certified in the dual therapist model,
Nice.
where we talk about how to find the right partner, the work that goes into building the relationship, building the trust, communication, the respect, how to work together. And then we cover, how to set up practice, how to put it out there, how to work with 3 people in the room. There's lots of nuances that we've learned over the years the hard way.
Right.
And a lot of it is coming out of your comfort zone in general. So it's being able to feel confident in taking a risk, doing things that are out of the ordinary. When we were trained, in school, this was, everything is very, there's a lot of guidelines and specifics. And, of course, we work within the legal and ethical guidelines of our professions. However, we are able to move past some of those, work within those parameters while still pushing those boundaries, kind of coming out of our comfort zones, which has clearly had benefits to us. But we're noticing that that's in general what a lot of people are feeling held back by, is feeling like there aren't other options. Just like what you said, you're feeling like you left the profession and you wouldn't have wanted to go back, but hearing that there's something different, there's another way to do something, can really be empowering to people. So helping to, model and train people on how to do that and kind of help mentor and guide them in ways they can practice that so they feel more confident taking a bigger step towards something like this.
And we were both in organizations before we started doing this. Kelly was in the school system and I was in a hospital-based system. And I always felt like my wings were tied. There wasn't a lot of room. There were so many rules and regulations, which some of them were very important, but there wasn't a lot of room for creativity and doing something different. There was red tape. There was gaslighting. There were hostile bosses. There were, walking that line between business and ethics. So you have to be brave enough to challenge some of the rules. You have to be able to leave your ego at the door. Yeah.
Well, where can people find your certification training? Is that available now?
Yeah, so you can go online and check out our website at dualtherapistmodel.com. And it's got some information on there, and you can reach out to us, and we'd be happy to talk to you further about that.
Is it a live training, or is it something that's pre-recorded?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
Yeah. We've also got some presentations coming up if you want to hear more about it. We have a book coming out hopefully in the spring.
Great. Wow. Is that written now? It's just in the editing process?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, it's nice because it's part memoir, part understanding where we come from as individuals, how we are together, and then how we then, bring that to our clients and the impact it has.
Yeah, it's a more in-depth look about how we each started, how we found each other, how the friendship grew, and then how the model came about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I look forward to reading that myself.
We also have a TED Talk coming up in November.
Oh, great.
TEDx, yeah. So we have that coming up. We're presenting at a psychophysiological disorder conference in November.
And that deals with chronic pain for children and adolescents.
Okay. Also from the dual therapy model approach, or?
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow, great. I'm so glad to know that you're doing a lot to spread the word.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'll include all those links in the show notes for this episode. But I'm so excited about the work that you're doing. I'm excited to look into it more myself, and just really appreciate the two of you being willing to take that risk for yourselves initially and offer it for your clients and to share this time with me. So, Dr. Michel Kinderman, Dr. Kelly Yanek, thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having us. It was good to see you.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please share it with someone you know who might find it helpful. It's one of the best ways you can support the podcast. I'd also be grateful if you could leave a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. I'd love to get your feedback. I release new episodes every Wednesday, so if you subscribe, you'll get the episodes as soon as they're available. If you'd like to become a supporting member, please visit sethgillahan.com/podcast-membership. Your support helps keep the Think Act Be podcast ad-free. And thank you for listening.